Hi, my name's Vince Sheehan and I'd like to talk about this book, Stalin, Paradoxes of Power, 1878 to 1928 by Stephen Kotkin. It was published in 2014 and is the first of a three-volume series about the life and times of Joseph Stalin. I believe the second volume's out as well at the time of this video, though I haven't read that one. And if you're anything like me, perhaps my knowledge of Russian history, is a bit sketchy, but this book was a real eye-opener. I suppose if you could sum it up in a sentence, it would be something like, the formation and rise to power of a dictator. And what I like about this book is that Kotkin isn't purely concerned with Stalin, his life, his biography. He puts Stalin in a context in which he was born and he grew up and lived in. The first part of this book, the book's in three parts with a brief coda at the end. The first part is really concerned with Imperial Russia, its failings, the extreme poverty, injustice, its inefficiency, its economic backwardness, the high-handedness of Tsar Nicholas II. All these things, its political failings, all these things are outlined, and it's within this kind of this situation of unrest that Stalin is born and grows up in at the end of the 19th century and into the 20th century as a young man. We hear about the major players around Russia as well. Germany with Bismarck and the kind of unification of Germany. We read about Japan and the humiliating defeat they won over Russia as well at the beginning of the 20th century. And we think about the people like Great Britain and France with their empires, etc. So Russia kind of feels threatened by all these forces around them, and Stalin grows up in this atmosphere, and he's from Georgia, and he gets a place at seminary to study to be a priest, believe it or not. But the first part kind of traces then his involvement then in kind of radical left-wing politics, and he starts getting involved with illegal activities. He's exiled to Siberia on a number of occasions. And then going back to the worldview, we have World War I, of course, and then Tsar Nicholas's abdication and the provisional government that comes after that. And then with the second part of the book, we move into the revolution itself, 1917, the February Revolution and then the October Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution. And the focus turns on Lenin and Stalin's place with Lenin and the other Bolshevik leaders, including Trotsky, of course. And we kind of read much about the chaotic beginnings of the Bolshevik government and the kind of rise of propaganda as well to explain the evils of the perceived evils of the countries around them, the capitalist powers around them. And then of course Lenin, Russia's exits the First World War then, accepting this humiliating treaty, the Brest-Litovsk Treaty. And Lenin, of course, then has poor health, and he has a number of strokes and eventually dies. And just before he dies, Stalin is made General Secretary. So that moves us on to the third part of the book, where Stalin now is in control. He is the General Secretary, and his power is challenged quite a number of times by other figures within the movement, and the kind of loathing between Stalin and Trotsky deepens, and they both truly hate each other. But it's within this part that Stalin kind of consolidates his grip over everyone around him, his control over the secret police, and we end the part, and indeed the book, with Stalin's drive for collectivisation of the farms. And that's where we're left at the end of this volume, and presumably the outcome of that will be in the second volume. We have a brief coda about, what if Stalin had died, and how would things be different, and so that's the kind of structure of the book, and it's fascinating because Kotkin paints Stalin as somebody who was not kind of born an evil person as such, or it didn't seem apparent at an early age or even into adulthood. He certainly was no angel, but it seems that only as he's accrued this immense power near the end of this book that we begin to kind of sense Stalin of infamy who we know. So it's a really great book. I'm looking forward to reading volume 2, and thank you for watching, and I do recommend this book. And below I've put how I perceive the structure of the book and its recurring themes to be. Thank you.